From now on, I am uploading regularly instead of the once every 3 months thing I did before. I'm uploading regularly. I'm uploading regularly. I'm uploading regularly.
No! 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 Liar! No!
You're lying!
I absolutely adore Cuphead. The game, amazing. The show, amazing. The books you've never heard of and probably haven't read, absolutely amazing.
Approved.
I love Cuphead so much that like half of my videos are just about Cuphead. Now that the show has been concluded for over a year, I believe it's finally time to go back and rank every episode from worst to best. What's the funniest episode? Which episode had the best boss debut? What's the best episode overall? What's the worst episode overall? Okay, no one's asking that last one. But regardless, I aim to give my take on all these questions in this video. Real quick before I get started, due to the subjectivity of comedy and what you may look for in an episode of Cuphead, my ranking is practically guaranteed to be different from yours. And that's okay. I would love to hear about any different placements in the comment section. Now let's get started with number 36. Before making this ranking, I knew 100% that this one would be at the very bottom of the list, because it's the only episode which I actively dislike. Cuphead is extremely annoying in this episode. He has one gag which he repeats over and over and over again. By the time Cuphead and Mugman are actually lost in the woods, I had already filmed 5 minutes of that awful joke, so there was no saving this episode in my mind. Admittedly, I did utter a small chuckle when Cuphead devoured Mugman's pie, but that's the only time this episode made me feel anything other than extreme annoyance.
And Cuphead, shave that beard. I'm not raising a bum.
By the end, Mugman starts apologizing, but I don't understand why. He didn't do anything that required the words "I'm sorry." Cuphead was clearly in the wrong, and the whole reason they were even lost in the first place.
Hey, I guess we both didn't handle things too well back there. I just want to say I'm sorry.
Overall, this episode is easily the worst one in my opinion, and I'm just glad I don't have to talk or think about it ever again.
I need to deliver the mail.
What you need is a new brother. Just listen to how good this sounds. Mugman, mailman. Mailman, Mugman. Mugman, mailman. Mailman, Mugman.
Another Brother is one of many episodes in Cuphead Season 2 which has Cuphead and Mugman getting into a petty argument which I don't care about. In this episode's defense, it is sandwiched between a high seas adventure and Sweet Temptation, which are some of the best this show has to offer, so already it was going to be underwhelming by comparison. But even then, this episode doesn't really do anything bad per se, it's just one of the more boring ones. Mugman's plot is what really holds this episode back. I didn't find it that funny at all. In fact, only one joke made me laugh. And for the most part, I just wasn't having that much fun watching it. Ballboy and Cuphead's chaos is the more entertaining part of the episode, but even then, it's really nothing special. Which perfectly describes this episode really. Not bad, but nothing that stands out either.
I see what you're doing there, Muggsy. Why not try a little something like this?
Funny story, when watching through all the episodes for this video, I couldn't be bothered to watch this one, so I skipped it and watched it last. Then, when writing the script, I skipped it again, because I honestly couldn't put my thoughts into words. The reason for this is because I don't really have much thoughts on this episode. It's very similar to Another Brother in that the content in the episode is inoffensive, but it's also just not very fun or engaging. Ludwig is alright. I think the way he pronounced Cuphead and Mugman's names is funny, but other than that, he's just fine, I suppose.
Yes, good morning, Mugman.
This is yet another episode of Cuphead and Mugman having an argument which I don't care about. In case you weren't counting, that's 3 so far. In just season 2. This one especially annoys me because Mugman is upset that Cuphead is naturally good at the piano and Ludwig wants him to be in the competition, to the point where he's willing to crush Cuphead with a piano. Cuphead wasn't even interested until he saw there was money involved, but Mugman feels betrayed by him anyway. I don't know, I just didn't enjoy this episode much at all. The argument between Cuphead and Mugman is annoying, and looking back, should have been a sign of things to come.
Well, can't win 'em all, boys. Hey.
Did you know Miss Chalice is only in 7 of the 36 episodes in this show, not counting a few cameos? So when I tell you it pains me to put one of those episodes this low, I really do mean it. Joyride is an interesting one to rank because it basically only acts as setup for the season finale. But because of this, it ends up feeling like nothing really happens outside the last minute of the episode. I do appreciate this episode giving us some more time with Chalice, Cuphead and Mugman interacting, since the finale relies on us seeing them as best friends, and this episode does help with that. I thought it was funny seeing Kettle do Chalice's dance, mostly due to how cursed it was, but that's about it. Aside from that, this episode mostly consists of a montage of the three hanging out, which is nice and everything, but it leaves this one feeling short and not very funny. Not bad at all though. It's always good to see Chalice get screen time, and the setup for the next episode is interesting and left me excited to see what comes next.
Say goodbye to Cuphead.
Goodbye to Cuphead.
On my first watch of The Devil's Pitchfork, I didn't think it would be as low as it is right now, but on rewatch I realised that it's actually not that good. Like, on paper this concept seems really good. Cuphead and Mugman stealing the Devil's Pitchfork and messing about with it sounds pretty funny, but in reality I only really laughed at the Devil's destruction of the town at the beginning of the episode. Cuphead and Mugman causing chaos with the pitchfork isn't as funny as I thought it would be. And I always thought the devil getting shocked by his own pitchfork was really stupid. Like, he just keeps reaching for the tip like a buffoon. Just grab a different part, bro. I will admit I like it better in the table read, since Luke Milliton Drake making the noises without the zap sound effect is really funny.
Give me that.
Actually, the table read as a whole really helps me appreciate just how talented these voice actors are. So if you take anything away from this segment, it's that this episode isn't great, but you should definitely check out the table read.
Hey, it worked!
Baby Bottle is fine. This is the second episode of the entire show, so we're still easing into Cuphead and Mugman's personalities, which is why I love the first minute where they fight for no reason. The rest of the episode is pretty decent as well. The slapstick moments, while not the best in the show, are still entertaining enough, and small details in the animation can be funny. Baby Bottle destroying Elder Kettle and then the three pawning it off on someone else are also moments I genuinely found really funny. So yeah, this episode was alright, with some funny moments and decent slapstick. Not the best the show has to offer, but it's decent. Rewatching all these episodes for the third time has really made my opinions on some of these change. I remember not liking Dangerous Mugman much at all, and while I still don't think it's amazing or anything, I had a lot more fun this time around. Pork Rind is the best part of this episode in my opinion. The scenes he's in are always consistently entertaining. One of my favourite dark jokes in this whole show is him fantasizing about killing Cuphead and Mugman due to how annoying they are. It was just so shocking and unexpected.
Who got you smiling like that?
The adventure they go on is fun to watch as well. I like the role reversal of the two brothers' dynamic, and Cuphead failing at every obstacle got a few laughs out of me. We also get a small cameo from Grim Matchstick at the end, which I can fully appreciate this time having played the game. This episode may be low, but that doesn't make it bad. Just not as good as others on this list. Did you know Miss Chalice is voiced by the same person that voices Azula in Avatar The Last Airbender? That has nothing to do with this episode, I just thought it was cool. Roadkill is mediocre. The devil's possessions are taken away because he hasn't been collecting souls, so he decides to finally get Cuphead's soul. Then he gets hit by a car. Him acting like a cat for the rest of the episode was fairly entertaining, but definitely not the funniest the show gets. There are still some good bits here though. I also like the goat in this episode. Him fixing the fence each time was amusing, and then that wholesome bit at the end with him and Kettle was really nice. Oh yeah, Chalice also cameos in this episode, you know, just to remind us that she exists. Roadkill is decent, but there are just so many better devil-focused episodes in this show.
How about a game of tic-tac-toe?
Oh boy, tic-tac-toe. Yay!
I have such a love-hate relationship with Ghost Ain't Real. I liked it the first time round, but the second time I thought it was one of the weaker episodes of season 1. But this time I enjoyed it a fair bit. I loved the animation in this one. There were some cool colour choices and creative movements which stuck in my head after watching. I also enjoyed the ghosts themselves. In this show as a whole, you can tell how much fun the voice actors have playing their characters, and the ghosts are no different.
Job for the evening, love.
I found this one decently funny, mostly due to the visual jokes. There are some really good ones here. This episode's best parts are found in its creative animation, so I found this one to be pretty alright.
What is all this?
Like what you see, boys?
Dirt Nap is a classic character misunderstanding storyline for like the first 7 minutes, where Elder Kettle tries to change himself for Cuphead and Mugman. I wasn't the biggest fan of this part, as there weren't really any jokes that made me laugh outside one visual gag. But then it shifts into Kettle thinking the boys are planning to assassinate him, so he tries to kill them first. I found this to be so silly I couldn't help but love it. My favourite part being when he's launched into the air while the flower duet plays, and then he gets crushed by a falling piano. This one was boring for the most part, but still contains some of the best jokes in the show in the last 3 minutes, in my opinion.
Who is it?
Don't Open the Door is probably the most random, stupid episode of this entire show, and it honestly just works. I just did not know what would happen next when watching this one. First, it seems like the conflict will be Mugman's anticipation to open the door, and then eventually he'll cave and Baby Bottle will come in. But then there's a bear at the door and it takes Baby Bottle, so the two go to save it. Then eventually Kettle reveals it wasn't actually Baby Bottle and it was just a prank. Then the bear walks in the house and says sorry for drinking the milk. Then Baby Bottle's actually at the door and then just starts smoking the bear. This episode is so random and dumb, and honestly, I really enjoyed it. A couple funny moments as well include Mugman's breathless spluttering, this facial expression from Cuphead, and just the entire last scene.
It's Baby Bottle! Wait, who's Baby Bottle?
Oh, do excuse me.
Did you know Miss Chalice is only in 7 out of the 36 episodes in the show, not counting a few cameos? Okay, in all seriousness, this one isn't bad at all. Chalice alone brings this one up due to how charismatic she is in her appearances. We even get a small funny cameo from Sally Stageplay in this episode too. Even with the few lines and screen time she gets, she still manages to be how I imagined she would after playing the game. The main conflict against the ghost with the paintings was also really fun to watch. This episode is held back, in my opinion, by the comedy, which I didn't find to be all that great aside from a few jokes. But this episode is still pretty fun. Not the best Chalice episode by a long shot, but still a good time.
Well, I want to go to the amusement park.
And I want to go to the movies.
Amusement park.
Movies.
Amusement park.
Movies.
This episode is actually really annoying for the most part. Say Cheese has, say it with me now, Cuphead and Mugman getting into an annoying argument which I don't care about. To say it's grating would be an understatement. I will never understand how they accused Kettle of lying about his promise when they didn't keep up their end of the bargain either. That was just so stupid. But after Kettle drops like Peter Griffin, this episode switches and actually becomes really funny. There are so many memorable jokes here.
You were always my favorite.
Hey, you said the same exact thing when you wanted my free pie coupon.
You don't need Cuphead, my boy.
Looking for something?
Most of this episode is genuinely annoying and not good, so I can't rank this one high. But that last half did have what I believe to be some of the best jokes, which brings this one up.
Cuphead!
Watch it. Aw, heck. Now look at what you made me do.
Going back to the first episode after so long is so strange. I don't know if it's just me, but Cuphead and Mugman sound kinda different in this one.
I guess we know what we're doing the rest of the day, huh?
Banana oil. Paint the fence, milk the goat, patch the roof. It's the same old stuff every day. What we need is a little fun and adventure. He really thinks we ain't fighting. Nice white.
Ow! Thanks.
Ow.
But we're not fighting.
That's not a bad thing about the episode, just something I noticed. This is a really great start to the show and does a good job of introducing the world and main characters. The Devil, Cuphead and Mugman all have great appearances here, especially the Devil. We also set up the Devil's hatred for Cuphead, which spawns a lot of the best episodes. Throw in some references to the game, some solid jokes, fluid animation, and you've got a pretty good first episode. A great sign of the amazing show to come.
Don't any of you appreciate the theater?
I appreciated the nap.
Cup Staged is a really fun episode. Cuphead, Mugman and the Devil all want the same role in a play, so they all audition and sabotage each other. This is Sally Stage Play's real boss debut, and it's very faithful to how she is in the game with her passion for the theatre. I also thought the audition segment was kind of funny. The various ways the three fail and the ending with Sally just playing all the parts herself and the rest doing backstage jobs is the best way it could end. This is our first boss debut on the list and it's really good. Side note, can we talk about how many times Cuphead and Mugman tried to off each other in this show? It's honestly kind of concerning.
So the angry mob is real?
Remember when I said I was lying about the angry mob? Well, the funny thing is, I was lying about the angry mob.
Charmed and Dangerous builds off of the cliffhanger from season 1 and aims to answer the question of whether the brothers can trust Miss Chalice. Now obviously we know that she does care about them at least a bit from her reluctance to leave them, but this episode is about Cuphead and Mugman growing to trust her, even though she clearly has some shifty moments. Firstly, can I just say that it doesn't make any sense that Chalice lied about lying about the angry mob? I don't understand why she did that, it can only harm her case. But anyway, I really enjoy the episodes we get of the trio interacting, including this one. It's just upsetting that there's so few of them. There's solid funny jokes in this one as well, like the angry mob just deciding to beat up Cuphead and Mugman, so the time they spent walking out there wasn't a waste.
We did come all this way. You want to just beat them up?
The goat joining in on the huddle and many more. This episode provides a good follow-up on In Charm's Way and was pretty fun. Right, so we're kicking off the top 20 with The Devil's Revenge. This episode is double length, which definitely helps its quality. It doesn't overstay its welcome and kept me engaged the whole time watching. While I wasn't a fan of the Devil's Pitchfork, this still offers a really good conclusion to what that episode set up, with Cuphead having to save Mugman from the devil. The funniest parts of this episode had to be the visual gags. There were too many to count that got a laugh out of me. This show was already really good with those, and that's not different here. The character dynamics here were also a delight. After Cuphead and Mugman bicker in like every episode in season 2, seeing them work together to escape was a breath of fresh air. The devil and henchmen are also fun together like usual. I liked how this season focused on their connection a lot more. My favourite part of this episode has to be the chase scene. The animation is really good and the music is super lively. I loved it. But I can't end this segment without mentioning arguably the most unexpected and darkest joke in this whole show.
Listen, I know my brother, and if he's not down here, then he's not dead.
That by itself earns this episode its top 20 spot on this list. Handle with Care starts with the bros having a blindfolded pillow fight and Mugman somehow managing to break his handle standing near the middle of the room. I'm still baffled on how he did this, but that hardly matters, I guess. Anyways, the rest of the episode follows the two trying to fix it in increasingly stupid ways. This is the 4th episode and I think it manages to be the funniest out of the first 4. Cuphead's ideas for how to fix Mugman's handle are just so stupid. The fact that they thought of honey and spit before thinking of glue is just so funny to me. Then you have when they need to go buy the glue and Mugman is extra and decides to go out of his way to draw even more attention to himself. It's great. Cuphead being unsympathetic at multiple points and Kettle's lie about manhandles at the end are also really memorable parts from this episode, which I enjoyed quite a bit. This episode does a great job showcasing just how funny the show can be early on.
Operator, get me the police.
You ain't on the list.
Sorry, boys. We gave it a shot.
I've only talked about one boss debut so far in this entire video, which just shows the quality of those episodes. Root Pact isn't the best boss debut, but still pretty enjoyable. I'll be so real to you when I tell you out of all the Cuphead bosses, the Root Pact goes into like the I don't care tier for me. But they are still entertaining in this episode. Once they throw Cuphead and Mugman out and throw that party with the Botanic Panic rearrangement playing, I started to really like this episode. The various ways the brothers tried to take down the party could be pretty funny. I enjoyed the callback to Mugman's stage fright from Roll the Dice, and the ending with the Root Pack getting obese and Kettle planning to cook them was also funny. This is the last boss debut of season 1, and while it's not the best one in that season, it's still solid.
Oh boy, $10! No, Cuphead, your soul's worth more than $10.
Hey, you're right. Make it 20.
I've decided to put these two together since in my eyes they're basically the same quality wise, and this is a two-parter. I think Sweater Luck Next Time is a bit better than Sweater Rough Dead, however. This two-parter continues the plot of the devil trying to take Cuphead's soul, which has only been focused on once since the season premiere. And no surprise, just like those episodes, these are really enjoyable. It's cool that the start of the first one mirrors episode 1 to show Cuphead's fear. It actually confused me till the changes happen. Both episodes have great moments. Cuphead willing to give the devil his soul for a mere $5, the devil coming to like Cuphead until he realizes the sweater is gone, the devil painting the fence, which he enjoys way too much and has animation which goes unnecessarily hard. These are just a few of many great jokes in this two-parter. These episodes are just some of the best in season 1 and definitely help boost my already high engagement with it.
Freedom!
Jailbroken kicks off season 2 really well. This episode follows Cuphead and Mugman as they try to escape prison after Chalice left them to be arrested last season. This episode is mostly pretty solid. I like that instead of the conflict between Cuphead and Mugman being about something petty like ice cream or
Amusement park!
Movies!
Amusement park!
Movies!
it instead comes from Cuphead wanting to escape and Mugman wanting to give up and serve his time. Their arguments are much less annoying when they're not about something incredibly dumb. This episode also calls back to the fact that Elder Kettle still doesn't have his glasses since they got broken in the last episode, and implies he's been bumbling around the house breaking stuff for at least a month, thinking he horrifically killed the boys, which is pretty funny. The escape attempts in this episode were also quite fun. I love the fast-paced comedy of the first one and the creativity of the second one. The way Cuphead failed was also great and caught me off guard. As far as premieres go, this is my favourite one in the show. It's very solid.
Wow! I can't believe I'm standing next to the King Dice! You're way shorter in person.
This episode introduces one of the best characters in the show, being King Dice. King Dice has arguably the most unique fight in Cuphead, and from the first trailer I was really excited to see him in the show. He is easily the best part of this episode. His attempts to keep his composure and professionalism while Cuphead decides to use none of his 4 brain cells is great. It was also cool seeing the devil show a bit more of his menacing side, since this is his second appearance and this is before later seasons where he becomes a bit of a clown. King Dice may carry this episode, but that's not a bad thing, since this is his boss debut. On my first watch of this episode, I didn't think it was anything special really, but now I think it's great. This is the first of 2 Christmas specials of this season, and while I think it's the worst of the 2, this one's still good for its own reasons. The musical number at the beginning was nice, and I loved the scene where Mugman tries to finesse a tree out of pork rind for a lower price, but fails completely.
Tell you what, here's my final offer. 15.
15? What happened to 10?
15 now.
But the real meat of this episode is Cuphead and Mugman trying to get the tree back to the cottage, which has some really good slapstick and energetic music. Then this episode ends with a wholesome moment, which both of these Christmas episodes pull off with good results. Great jokes, wholesome character interactions, and pork rind make this episode a really fun one.
I'm looking out for now.
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
In Dance with Danger, we finally get a backstory for Miss Chalice, how she became half ghost, and what her life was like to lead up to her charming free stuff out of people. This episode doesn't go that in depth with this backstory, like it would have been cool to see how she ended up at the orphanage, but I think what they gave us here was sufficient enough, to be honest. Chalice had a horrible life in the orphanage before she glides out of there like Batman and starts charming people. Obviously what she does isn't good, but it's reasonable at the start since she kinda had to do it to survive, and the episode does a good job making her sympathetic. The montage and song both slap. I especially love this transition. And then Chalice gets hit by a car. This shot me really good the first time round. I thought it was weird she was dancing in the street anyways, and then she just gets run over and the screen cuts to black. The devil also has one of his best appearances here. He's genuinely the most menacing he's been in the whole show, but still maintains his comedy and personality. The rest of the episode after Chalice dies is really good and gives an interesting setup to the finale. This episode isn't that funny, but I think that's fine, because this one's trying to be a bit more serious, and I believe it succeeds in that regard. Very good penultimate episode to the show.
Relax, Muggsy. I'll just sneak in there and grab the ball. The pig won't even know what hit him.
The pig knows.
Some would probably argue special delivery shouldn't be this high, and they're probably right. But this episode is just too fun. It gives us more time with Chalice and the boys interacting, and I gotta say, I love their dynamic and how much they get into their characters and disguises. Chalice fits right in with Cuphead and Mugman and adds a lot to their banter. Porkrind is here and is great as usual. I love that the extra bit of hatred he has for Mugman specifically is still here from episode 10, but despite that, he still feels guilty and is worried he just sent the Free to blow up. Ribby and Croaks also return in this episode as well, and they're just as good as they were in their debut episode. The way Croaks is forgiven instantly for trying to kill Ribby with exploding shoes is just perfect for them.
Why would you send me exploding shoes?
'Cause you tried to bury me alive that time, remember?
Oh, always trying to bump each other off. When did this become our thing, huh?
Come here, you.
Lots of solid jokes in this one and setup for the plot of the final 3 episodes. So yes, even if some disagree, this one's staying where it is. Really fun one.
Here's $5 and some pocket lint.
Ribby and Croaks is the first boss debut in the series if you don't count the devil in episode 1. And it sets the standards for how good boss debut episodes would be moving forward. Since the show just started, Cuphead and Mugman's bickering isn't as annoying as it would go on to be in later seasons, and it's a new thing at this point. Plus, this facial expression from Mugman is the first of its kind, which makes it all worth it. It also helps that their bickering is supposed to mirror how Ribby and Croaks act all the time. Speaking of, Ribby and Croaks themselves are really entertaining. Their voices are perfect, and the delivery of some of their lines were gold.
Oh, hello, Mr. Mayor. Mrs. Mr. Mayor. We're respectable types.
Say any different and I'll pound you.
The chase scene was very well animated and fits nicely with their boss theme from the game. In fact, the whole setting of the ship and the guests in attendance also replicates the boss fight really well. Due to this being the first boss debut, I feel like it had to showcase a lot of their boss fight from the game, and I'd say it's done excellently and faithfully depicts these bosses.
But we deserve the blame. We left the door open.
We don't know that's how it got in.
That is how I got in.
In this episode, Cuphead and Mugman make a surprise cake for Elder Kettle until Werner Vermin comes in and attempts to claim the cottage for himself. This is the best pure slapstick episode of the show, hands down. The comedy is quick and effective. I actually struggled on Werner a lot in Cuphead, so I had a somewhat bitter opinion of him going into this episode, but I really enjoyed his portrayal here. He's cocky and overconfident, which ends up leading to his downfall in the end, and I must say his voice actor is doing a great job.
Well, which will it be, huh? Your precious cottage? Or your precious cups?
I love how he just randomly gives up on the German accent and starts speaking in an American one at the end.
Ow! That really hurt! You know what? Forget this! I'm out of here!
This is also without a doubt the best Kettle episode. His previous war experience comes back in this one as he fights back against Werner, and he's constantly entertaining in this one, not annoying in the slightest. This episode uses a fateful boss debut and adds it with fast-paced comedy to create an extremely enjoyable package.
You know, dummy, sometimes you're a little too smart for your own good.
Well, that makes one of us.
Hey, are you saying I'm dumb?
Why state the obvious?
Down and Out introduces the best character in all of Cuphead, the dummy.
In case you're wondering, he's the dummy.
Hey!
No, but the dummy does get a few laughs out of me every time I watch this episode. We see King Dice after the events of Release the Demons, as he lives like a bum until Cuphead and Mugman find him and decide to help him get back to the top. I don't really dislike anything in this episode, to be honest. It's just another good one. Some highlights include the dummy, of course, and this facial expression from the devil. Part 3 of Cuphead doesn't have as many crazy facial expressions, so this one does stand out. King Dice has a banger song here, which made me realise he's voiced by the same guy that voices that one bunny rabbit on Sophia the First, which was a great casting choice. I really can't complain. This episode wraps up King Dice's story nicely.
It's a club! For your big comeback!
Kind of a dump.
There's some change for the less fortunate.
Ew!
A Very Devil Christmas is the longest episode of the entire show, clocking in at 30 minutes. So knowing this, we have to ask ourselves, does it justify its longer runtime? Yes. Granted, the plot is very silly. The devil learns about Santa's nice and naughty list and wants to get on the nice list so he can get a choo-choo train. But after trying, and failing, horrifically, to be nice, Santa's elves perform a ritual which turns the devil into Santa, in which he has to deliver presents in his place. Some people really dislike how the devil becomes a joke in later episodes of Cuphead, and while I see where they're coming from, I still think he's handled quite well in this episode. The devil having as much rage as he does and his innate love for destroying things and making people unhappy made his struggles in this episode engaging for me, no matter how random his motivations may be. I like the scene with Cuphead and the devil, even though there should be no way in hell Cuphead made the nice list this year. If we're being honest, Mugman shouldn't have made it either, but hey, it don't matter, I guess. The ending is also quite wholesome, which I really wasn't expecting. This episode was really funny, engaging, a little bit dark, and surprisingly wholesome, which makes it a fitting Christmas special for Cuphead in my opinion.
Hey, I've read that book. Mugbeard dies in the end.
That's a good one. He dies.
If Special Delivery wasn't a controversial pick, then the Ice Cream Man could definitely be the hottest take of this video. But I can't help it, I just love this episode. Cuphead and Elder Kettle are running errands, so Mugman gets some time to relax to himself and read a book. But then the Ice Cream Man keeps interrupting him. The thing that makes this episode so great is how unhinged Mugman is. He's like this throughout season 2, but it's at its funniest here. Not only does the Ice Cream Man keep coming back with his extremely loud music, he also commits the biggest sin in this entire show. He has his hat on crooked. It's so in character for Mugman to get annoyed at such a small detail. It was such a smart thing to add. Then you have the insane last half where Mugman tries to apologize and the Ice Cream Man attempts to run him over, even going as far as to drive into the sea to reach him. Stupid over-the-top scenes like this are what Cuphead excels at. The episode then ends with the Ice Cream Man spoiling the ending of the book and Mugman losing his mind. The best way to end it. In my opinion, this episode is one of the funniest in the show, hands down, and I don't think that will ever change.
I eat your candy, I end up in an oven. You just want to eat me.
This is funny. You're a funny guy.
Here we are at the final 5 episodes. Assuming you're all here and you didn't leave a long time ago. These episodes are so good that any problems in them are minor and won't affect your overall enjoyment. I've decided to kick off the top 5 with Sweet Temptation, the second best boss debut in my opinion. Cuphead destroys all of Mugman's Halloween candy, so he gets thrown out and discovers Sugarland, where Baroness Bonbonbon resides. She instantly makes this episode stand out with her insane personality and animation. Her voice actress is also doing a superb job bringing her to life.
Oh, yeah, I see it now.
Apparently this is one of her first voice acting roles, which I didn't notice and wouldn't be able to tell since she seems so natural in the role. This is another case where this isn't how I expected the character to act when playing the game, but the show's take is still amazing. This episode also has some great jokes, like the scene at the beginning, and Cuphead immediately trying to nope out of any interaction with the Baroness. Sweet Temptation gives an unexpected but welcome take on a great boss from the game, and has earned its spot near the top of this list. The season 1 finale introduces Miss Chalice, as she teaches Cuphead and Mugman how to charm their way through life. When binging season 1 for the first time with my friends, about halfway through, one of them wondered when Chalice would show up. Little did he know she would only be in the last episode. For 11 minutes. Despite that, these 11 minutes ended up being some of the best of the show. By this point, the DLC had been announced and Chalice being a playable character and that was known. But it was interesting to see how this show would tackle a character who's in the game but in a very different way. She brings her own unique charisma to the show and ends up being arguably the most entertaining, which is saying something because Mr. King Dice and the Devil were in this season. As the episode goes on, you wonder if Chalice is actually helping or just using the boys. And this helps surround her character in even more intrigue. By the end, we realise she genuinely did like them. You know, just not enough to go to the pen for them for a break-in she directly helped with and coerced them into doing. I will say it's a tad bit stupid that Cuphead and Mugman get slumped after banging into each other a little too hard when they've been through much worse in this very season, but that's like a small complaint, and it doesn't matter too much. This episode's got solid jokes and introduces one of the best characters in the show. I absolutely loved it.
Then he goes on Roll the Dice, which is impossible to lose. And wouldn't you know it, he couldn't name Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. I mean, who can't name Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star?
Release the Demons is a necessary episode for the devil in season 2, as it's one of only 2 that he gets to be in, so it's a good thing it slaps as hard as it does. Cuphead is living in the devil's head rent-free, so he decides today is the day he's going to get the former's soul, so he sends his finest demons to claim it. Well, his third finest demons.
I want to obliterate all of you, but I cannot even begin to imagine the 4th finest demons.
Or as they're now known, the 2nd finest.
Thank you, Hedgeman.
This episode is full of amazing jokes. The anger management book the devil's reading at the start of the episode is comedic gold if you pause to read it. The vitriolic anger the devil has as he explains his failures to his finest demons is hilarious. I love the fact that King Dice comes back and decides to try and take out Cuphead by himself to take all the credit and starts emoting after killing the other finest demons. Even the small details in the episode add, like Cuphead and Mugman wearing these coats that they've never worn before or after this, and the aforementioned anger management book. This is what I consider to be the funniest episode in the show, which is what lands it in the top 3. But in terms of overall quality, there are 2 which I think are slightly better.
There's always glue.
High Seas Adventure does everything well. Cuphead and Mugman want to mess about and pretend to be pirates until they accidentally go out at sea. Here they meet Briny-Beard, who's looking for the dreaded sea beast so he can profess his love. When I say this episode does everything right, I'm not exaggerating. We have 2 wonderful boss debuts. Callum Maria is not only menacing, but also just very entertaining.
But I'm afraid I must eat you and your crew now. How about I give you a 10-second head start, though?
She doesn't have the voice I was expecting, but it still fits her even better than what I was imagining. Briny-Beard, on the other hand, is exactly what I imagined from the game, voice and all. He's also quite enjoyable. I love that he was thrilled Mugman broke his leg so he could stand out from other pirates. That's dedication right there. Both have fun musical numbers. The comedy and facial expressions in this episode are top tier, my favourite being this Mugman face after he breaks Briny-Beard's legs. We got some great animation and chase scenes, and there isn't a single moment spent in this episode where I'm bored or getting annoyed by the characters. If we're speaking objectively, A High Seas Adventure is probably the best episode of the show. If not for me liking the next episode a tad bit more, I would crown this my favourite experience in the Cuphead Show. The Devil and Miss Chalice is the final episode of the Cuphead Show. And man, did it deliver, giving this show an amazing send-off. This episode continues a couple months after the devil cashes in the favour Miss Chalice owes him to betray Cuphead and Mugman. If you really deep it, that means Chalice was stalling the devil by dancing with him for at least 2 months, which is kind of crazy and makes no sense, but that's probably why you're not supposed to think about it. Anyways, Chalice can't go through betraying her best friends and tricks the devil into proposing a dance battle to determine the greatest dancer of all time, and whether Chalice gets to live or...
Oh yes, not only killed but obliterated, merely a scorched shadow on the pavement. Dust.
Before I talk about what I love in this episode, I have to mention a couple things which didn't make much sense. First, this dumb line from Mugman.
What are you, nuts? Yeah, what are you doing?
Have you not been paying attention, bro? Also, the way Chalice loses the dance battle makes no sense. Whoever wins is based on whoever gets the most applause, but then Cuphead trips on the marbles Cuphead gave her earlier in the episode and loses, even though she got way more applause than the devil and even almost maxed out the machine. So how did she lose? These things are pretty stupid, but aren't enough to take away from my immense enjoyment watching this episode. The stakes are immediately set when the devil shows Chalice what will happen if she doesn't go through with what he's demanding. This is the most chilling scene in the show, and serves as a reminder to Chalice and the audience that this is the devil she's dealing with. Then the animation in this episode pops off during the dance scenes. The one at the beginning and the dance battle have such fluid creative dancing, and it's a feast for the eyes. The music is also very good. using lots of leitmotifs from both Chalice and the Devil's songs respectively. The dance battle was incredible and the best part of this episode. The character interactions are also done very well in this episode. Cuphead, Mugman and Chalice solidify their bond in this episode. And after the Devil loses, Henchman tries to cheer him up, further showing their already growing wholesome relationship from A Very Devil Christmas. King Dice and Stickler get their final appearances, and we even get a bunch of cameos in the crowd from characters like Pork Rind and Ruby and Croaks. Then there's the actual final rock paper scissors battle between Cuphead and the Devil. I think it's cool that Cuphead beats the Devil with a luck based game, which he's shown to be very good at throughout the show, and even in this very episode. A luck based game is also the reason he lost his soul in the first place, so I think this is a good final confrontation for them to have. Then we have the final scene of the show, where the three discover the Devil's casino and Cuphead runs off to it, having not learned his lesson at all. This can perfectly transition into the game, provided this show never gets another season. You know, just ignore the fact that Chalice is there. If I list off everything this episode did well, I'd honestly be here all day. This is just a fantastic way to end off such a fantastic show. Right, now let's do a quick summary of the best and worst episodes. Lost in the Woods. Yeah, this is no shock if you've seen the show. This episode is annoying, unfunny, and quite frankly, 11 minutes is too long for it. The biggest blunder in the show by a mile.
Release the demon!
This episode had the most memorable jokes in the show for me and consistently had me laughing out loud. It's hilarious. High Seas Adventure. Juggling two bosses in one episode sounds tricky, but it worked really well and was probably aided by the longer running time. This episode adapted two bosses very faithfully and even added things to them I never would have thought of. I spent a long time gushing about this episode already. It's been my favourite since it came out and will probably stay that way forever. What a finale. There you have it. Every episode of the Cuphead Show ranked from worst to best, in my opinion. I love this franchise so much, and I am glad I was able to share that with this video and the videos I've made about it in general. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. And check out the show if you haven't, although you probably wouldn't be watching this if you hadn't.